They said the house was too quiet, but I've learned silence isn't peace. Silence is what you hear right before something answers back. When I moved into room 103, I thought the walls were just old. They groaned when I closed the door, sighed when the wind passed through the cracks, and sometimes they almost seemed to breathe. But on the third night, the air felt different, thicker, like something was awake inside the walls. At around 1:17 a.m., I heard the first sound, a faint tap, 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 soft as fingertips brushing wood. It came from right behind my bed. I stared at the wall, waiting for it to stop. It didn't. It matched my breathing. I got up, flicked on the light, checked behind the bed. Nothing. No pipes, no loose boards, no mice. But when I turned the lights off again, the knocking came back. 3 taps this time. Slow, patient, like someone waiting for me to reply. And stupidly, I did. "Hello," I whispered. For a second, silence. Then, knock, knock. 2 perfect answers. I froze. Maybe it was an echo. Maybe I was just tired. But then I said it again, just to prove myself wrong. "Is someone there?" The sound stopped, and through the quiet, I heard it, a whisper, dry and cracked like dust sliding down an empty throat. "Don't talk at night." I felt every hair on my neck rise. The voice wasn't inside my head. It was inside the wall. I didn't sleep after that. Every creak, every sigh of the house sounded like it was listening. And just before dawn, when I leaned my ear against the wall again, I realized something that made my blood freeze solid. There was something breathing in there, slow, uneven, and close enough that I could feel the vibration through the plaster. Then, buried inside that shallow breath, a whisper came again. This time, not just words, but my own name. I didn't move for a long time, just stood there, pressed against the wall, listening to that thing breathe. It wasn't steady breathing. It was weak, broken, like lungs dragging through dirt. And every few seconds, the wall gave a little shiver, as if something inside was shifting. When the sun finally rose, I packed my bag. I told myself I'd leave, but as soon as I grabbed the doorknob, I froze. There were finger marks on the inside of the door. 4 long streaks of gray dust running downward from the top, as if someone had been hanging there. That entire morning, I heard faint scratching, slow, deliberate. It followed me wherever I went in the room. If I moved to the window, the sound shifted closer to the wall near it. If I stood by the closet, the noise came from behind the plaster there, like it was crawling inside the walls. By evening, I started noticing something new. When I spoke out loud, a faint echo answered. But it wasn't my echo. The rhythm was wrong. The words came after me in a dry whisper, like a voice made of dust. I tested it. "What are you?" I asked. Silence. Then faintly, "You." I felt something wet hit my cheek. A tiny drop of grayish liquid had leaked through a hairline crack in the wall. I stepped back. The wall was breathing again, visibly this time. Tiny pulses under the paint, like veins pressing against skin. My phone buzzed suddenly. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. There was no voice, only a muffled static. Then a sound that made my stomach twist. My own voice, repeating what I had just said. Every word with the same tone, same breath, but deeper. Then a final whisper. "She's still in the wall." The call ended. And right then, the tapping started again. But it wasn't random anymore. It was coming from every wall around me. A chorus of soft, hollow knocks. all moving closer to where I stood. That night, the room felt alive. The walls seemed to hum, faint and uneven, like someone whispering from deep underwater. Every corner carried that same dusty smell, dry rot, old paint, and something else, something human. I didn't turn the lights off, not after what I'd heard, but around 2:43 a.m., the bulb flickered, once, twice, and died. The darkness came so fast it felt intentional. For a moment, the only sound was my heartbeat. Then, a scrape, a slow dragging noise, starting from the corner of the room. It moved across the wall, crawling beneath the layers of paint. "Stop," I whispered. The sound paused, and then, almost mocking me, came a single faint knock. I grabbed my phone's flashlight and shone it at the wall. Nothing, except the paint. But as I stepped closer, I noticed a small bulge under the plaster, like something trying to push through. I ran my fingers over it. It was soft, too soft. Then from inside came a muffled exhale, like a sigh that didn't belong to me. The wall flexed again. A thin crack split open, and beneath the peeling paint, I saw it. Skin. Not stone, not dust. Skin, pale, stretched tight, with faint outlines of something beneath it. And before I could step back, a faint impression formed from the inside. A mouth. It opened slowly, and the voice that came out was nothing human. It sounded like 1,000 whispers trapped together, scraping for air. "Let me out, you promised." I stumbled back, knocking over the chair. My flashlight hit the floor, the beam shaking wildly across the room. For a second, the wall breathed in. The paint blistered outward, and through the cracks, I saw eyes. Gray, dry, empty, staring right at me from inside the wall. Then everything went silent. No breath, no whisper, only the faint crumble of dust falling to the floor. When I looked back, the wall was still, perfectly normal again, except for one new thing written faintly in the paint. 103. The same number on my door. Only now, it was written from the inside. By morning, I'd already decided to leave. No sleep, no peace. Every time I blinked, I saw those eyes behind the wall, wide, gray, hollow. I threw my clothes into the bag, but every zipper sounded too loud, too sharp, like the house was listening again. The air was thick with dust. Each breath felt like I was inhaling someone's memory, and somewhere inside the walls, that faint breathing had returned. Slower now, almost patient, like it knew I wasn't going anywhere. Before stepping out, I glanced once more at the wall where the face had appeared. The paint was smooth again, but under the morning light, I could still see the faint shape of a handprint pressed beneath the plaster, as if someone had reached out and been sealed inside. I wanted to run, but something in me, some sick curiosity, wanted to know what it was, why it said my name, why it sounded familiar. So I went to the building's caretaker, an old man with the glassy eyes who never looked you directly in the face. When I told him I was in room 103, he stopped breathing for a second, then quietly said, "I shouldn't have rented that room again." I asked what he meant. He wouldn't answer, just whispered that wall was rebuilt. They sealed it when they found her. "Found who?" I asked. He looked up at me, his hands trembling. "The tenant before you. She went missing last winter. The police never found her body, but..." He swallowed hard. They heard her voice when they tore the place down. From inside the wall, the world tilted. The whisper I'd heard last night echoed in my mind. "Let me out. You promised." When I returned to the room, the door was already open. My things were still there, untouched, but the wall, the one that used to breathe, was now covered in cracks. The air inside was colder, the kind of cold that comes from something beneath the floor, and written across the wall in the same thin dust that coated everything were words so faint I almost missed them. You didn't keep your promise. I stepped closer, heart pounding. The paint began to ripple again, and this time I didn't see eyes. I saw a mouth, and from that mouth came my voice, perfectly clear, perfectly calm, saying, "I never left." Then the wall smiled. I don't remember leaving the room. Maybe I never did. All I know is, by the time the sun went down again, room 103 felt smaller. The air pressed tighter around me, like the walls were leaning in, listening. Every sound had a heartbeat. The ticking of my watch, the slow, dragging pulse inside the walls, and under it all, that breathing. Always the breathing. I tried to record it on my phone, but when I hit play, there was no sound, just my own voice whispering, "Don't talk at night." The same words she'd said, the same voice that wasn't mine anymore. I smashed the phone against the floor. The screen cracked, the light flickered, and in that flicker for a split second, I saw her, the woman in the wall, her face half formed in dust and paint, her lips moving without sound. Then, just barely, I heard it. She took my voice. I backed away, my pulse hammering. The ceiling groaned. The air turned warm, thick, like someone breathing right beside my ear. And then I realized the voice that said my name wasn't coming from the wall anymore. It was coming through me. I touched my throat. It was trembling, vibrating, like a speaker trying to speak words I didn't choose. The next whisper didn't come from the room. It came from inside my chest. "She's in you now." I fell to the floor, choking on dust, my vision fading in and out. The walls pulsed like living skin, and that faint, gray dust swirled around me in tiny shapes, like faces, like memories. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. Everything looked normal again. The cracks were gone. The wall was solid, and yet, when I looked closer, there were faint patterns beneath the paint. Human shapes pressed outward. Someone knocked on the door. It was the new tenant, a young woman holding boxes. She smiled nervously. "Hi, sorry, this is room 103, right?" I opened my mouth to answer, but no words came out, only dust. And somewhere deep inside the wall, a voice that sounded exactly like mine whispered, "Welcome home."